I came into office at a time of great economic and international instability. Families and businesses were worried about how to pay their bills. Putin's illegal war in Ukraine threatens the security of our whole continent, and our country has been held back for too long by low economic growth. I was elected by the Conservative Party with a mandate to change this. We delivered on energy bills and on cutting national insurance. And we set out a vision for a low-tax, high-growth economy that would take advantage of the freedoms of Brexit. I recognise, though, given the situation, I cannot deliver the mandate on which I was elected by the Conservative Party. I have therefore spoken to His Majesty the King to notify him that I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party. This morning I met the chairman of the 1922 committee, Sir Graham Brady. We've agreed that there will be a leadership election to be completed within the next week. This will ensure that we remain on a path to deliver our fiscal plans and maintain our country's economic stability and national security. I will remain as Prime Minister until a successor has been chosen. Thank you.
Good evening, Scotland. Good evening, social media land. I hope you are well. It is Tuesday, the 18th of October. Is it Tuesday? No, it's Thursday. Thursday, the 20th of October, 2022. And as per usual, we are recording tonight's show for security and integrity of the message and the ability to upload and share via other platforms. You know, I was thinking that tonight's live was going to be all about Suella Braverman resigning and, you know, that Shaps guy coming in, you know, the one with like 22 different names. But then all this happens today. You know, it's unbelievable. The Suella thing pales in comparison to the events of last night leading up to the resignation today of Liz. Tories brawling in the House, whips quitting their role and then taking it on again, and the fiasco that did lead up to the fiasco that is the leadership of Liz, which has left us without leadership again at the most senior level. Not that she was much of a leader, to be perfectly honest. You know something? Perhaps King Charles should follow suit like all the other previous Charlies did and just dissolve Parliament. Now, that would be a spectacle, wouldn't it? Let's get started.
The Saltire is also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and TikTok. You will find the links to follow us on all of them at www.thesaltire.scot/media.
Okie dokie, how are you all? Let's have a quick look at the chit chat. There's Kim and Susie, thank you for joining us. My friends there, very good of you. Listen, anybody that's in the chat, it's quite a friendly chat here, very respectful, so feel free to comment. We come into the chat from time to time just to have a wee, see what you're saying amongst yourselves and what pertinent comments that you're making with regards to what I've put on the screen or what I'm talking about. No, you didn't, did you? Yes, I did. I had to put that video up, Susie. I really did, because it kind of sets the tone of the comedy evening that is that Indy show tonight. It's crazy. I actually got a phone call off the guy called Robert, right? You know, the one that does my jingle. He works with me and I'm upstairs having my lunch. And he phones me and says, you need to get to your phone. You need to go and watch it. She's about to resign. And I was like, put the phone down on him. And I immediately went to the BBC and I caught it all. And I was like, wow, what a nightmare. But at the same time is like not a nightmare. It's all crazy. But there you go. All right, okay, cool. I was answering her. Yeah, no. It's a weird thing that's going. Listen, see as we go through tonight, and when we get to the papers for tomorrow, wait until you see the papers for tomorrow. It's just this could not play out. This whole thing could not play out in a more panto-esque kind of way. It's unbelievable. I'm going to go through my wee script and my notes, and then when we get to the papers, we can have a laugh about it all. So please keep commenting, keep chatting, and we will come back to you. I'm going to keep the chat screen live on the thing for OBS. I need to turn my camera a little bit. I'm hiding behind the chat box. There we go. Okay, so right, so my Suella live was all ready to go, and it was a great one. It was going to be a fun one, a real proper Mickey taken of how the Truss administration seems to be dropping ministers left, right, and centre. But there's just no point. There's no point. So I've got a good few fun videos and a few newspaper articles that I'll read out as I was throwing something together that I could do to go through with what's happened with Liz Truss today. So I think the best summary events leading up to Liz Truss resigning was by Paul Kavanagh. If you know him, he's also known as the Wee Ginger Doug. He's a columnist in The National and a great Scottish pro-Indy blogger. He's absolutely amazing, one of my most favourite people to read. He's one of the only bloggers that I really read because he's quite sensible with his choice of words and the way that he articulates stories and stuff. Right, so these are his words. I'm not going to take any credit for them because they're perfect for this. To summarise yesterday's events, the Home Secretary resigned, ostensibly because of a breach of the ministerial code regarding sending official information from a personal email account. Given that this is a woman who happily trashes international law and as Attorney General told government lawyers not to tell ministers if their policies broke the law, it seems implausible that she suddenly finds a moral compass that led her to resign over what she claimed was a technical breach of regulations. So it's not just Chancellor Monthly that's the new Tory magazine, but also Home Secretary Monthly, and now Prime Minister Monthly too. Braverman sent Truss a resignation letter dripping with passive-aggressive contempt. It has led many to speculate that the real reason for Braverman going was that so she could position herself for a leadership bid once the PM had been forced out of Downing Street. This was then followed by a vote on fracking, best characterised by the good old Scots word, is it pandome? Pandome. I can't never pronounce that properly. Defined by the Dictionary of Scots Language as an uproar or a chaos, an all hell let loose. The vote had been billed as a de facto vote of confidence in Truss, as Tory whips desperately tried to save the government from collapse. Then at the last minute, the Climate Change Minister, Graham Stewart, no, I've never heard of him either, was told by Number 10 to announce the three-line whip on the fracking vote was suspended. However, nobody thought to tell the Chief Whip, Wendy Morton, who quit on the spot. Truss was barracked by her own MPs in the voting lobby and ended up not voting in a vote which may or may not have been a vote of confidence in her own government, because she was too busy having a screaming match with her shortly to be ex-Chief Whip. Then Deputy Chief Whip Craig Whittaker also said he had gone, reportedly saying, "I am effing furious." Brilliant. Labour MP Chris Bryant named Theresa Coffey and Jacob Rees-Mogg as cabinet ministers he had seen physically manhandling reluctant MPs into the no lobby. Bryant told the Speaker he has photographic evidence and it is now an official Commons investigation. I honestly can't imagine Rees-Mogg manhandling himself down corridors sometimes, you know, to be perfectly honest. That's crazy. Right, so there are some pictures of this floating around the internet, all right? I've got one. I'll just bring it up there now. Hold on. Doodle-doo. It's here. Boom. We'll need to put you off for a second. Right, so when you're looking at it, it's not a very good picture. Okay, it's the only one I could find. I have seen a few other ones, right, that actually shows a bit of a scuffle, but in this one, you can't really. I mean, I assume that you know, just off centre right, I think that is Rees-Mogg that's there. I can't tell. It could just be a crowd of people waiting for Oasis tickets. You know, it really could be just that. But in all honesty, right, I don't think it's that. It doesn't make any sense, but there are pictures floating around apparently of this, and if anybody can find any of them, put them on their Instagram, and please tag the Saltire Instagram into it, because I would love to see them. I really, or tweet them to me, whatever you want. It'd be great. It'd be great. Of all the things to happen in 2022, seeing Jacob Rees-Mogg accused of taking part in a pub brawl, okay, that wouldn't look out of place on Coronation Street, wasn't on anyone's prediction list. Then a couple of hours later, the government announced that the whips hadn't resigned. No, they had not resigned, after all. And it was indeed a vote of confidence in the government, a vote which the then Prime Minister didn't actually get to vote in. Can you believe that? That's insane. SNP MP Angus MacNeil tweeted, "Tory MPs telling me they're switching off their phones in case the Prime Minister calls and offers them a promotion. We are all so far down the rabbit hole now that it's genuinely impossible to tell whether Angus was joking or not." So to summarise, this is wee Ginger Doug's words again. To summarise, because a bunch of unelected right-wing zealots backed by a free market fundamentalist think tank which won't reveal full details on who it funds, and how it trashed the economy, we're back to austerity and all its miseries. Unbelievable. Okay, so personally, right, I ran out of popcorn watching this all unfold last night. It was absolute political heaven for me watching this and reading about it today. To be fair, Lord Karma himself has caught up with the Conservative and Unionist Party and gave them a leader that lacked all leadership qualities, allowed her to drag the economy and these islands, the whole international reputation of these islands, through a Victorian sewer. And that pretty much stinks, you know. The feelings of the Tory party were summed up perfectly in this report.
This whole affair is inexcusable. It is a pitiful reflection on the Conservative Parliamentary Party at every level. And it reflects really badly, obviously, on the government of the day.
Do you think there's any coming back from this?
I don't think so. But I have to say I've been of that view really since two weeks ago. This is an absolute disgrace. As a Tory MP of 17 years, who's never been a minister, who's got on with it loyally most of the time, I think it's a shambles and a disgrace. I think it is utterly appalling.
So you seem quietly...
I'm livid. And, you know, I really shouldn't say this, but I hope all those people that put Liz Truss in number 10, I hope it was worth it. I hope it was worth it for the ministerial red box. I hope it was worth it to sit round the cabinet table, because the damage they have done to our party is extraordinary.
I'm sorry, it's very difficult to convey. You look just furious about this.
I am. I've had enough. I've had enough of talentless people putting their tick in the right box, not because it's in the national interest, but because it's in their own personal interest to achieve ministerial position.
Oh my God. I watched that interview live yesterday and I was just like, is he really saying that? I don't even know who that is. Don't really care, to be perfectly honest, but wow. This this is just, it's a, listen, okay, if I take my mature hat and put it on just now, it's an absolute tragedy for the British Isles, everybody that lives here, with the ridiculous lack in leadership that we have right now. I mean, we're a laughing stock of the world, if we cared about the union, which I don't, okay? So, when you take it from, like, my personal point of view, I can't stand the Westminster, what's it called, the Westminster system. In fact, I'll go as far to say this. Absolutely, I totally detest the Tories and everything they stand for. This, to me, is karma and payback for the past 12 years. But it progressively gets worse. We get to the, oh my God, wait till you see what's going to happen with this next little segment as we go through it all, right? Let's have a quick look in the old chatteroony, and let me bring up the chat box just now. There we go. Excellent. Right, so Yelma, can I just call you Yel Malian? Can I just call you Yel? If you gave the Tories a clue, they'd still be deep in overdraft. You know, that's unfair for people that have a deficit in their brains as it is, mate. You know, Yell, brilliant. I'm loving calling you Yell. It's, I would go further than what you're saying there. You know, I think if you gave them a clue, they would fight over it, and then they would like resign over it, and then there'd be confusion, and then they'd try and vote over it, and then not vote over it, and that's just in the past 24 hours. I mean, this ridiculous. Who would have thought? Who'd have thought? Fisticuffs in the division lobbies. I mean, really? By Jacob Rees-Mogg, my 4-year-old could snap him in half. I swear to God. He just look. He's probably nuggets. He's probably hard as hell, right? I'll be perfectly honest. I would, you know, wouldn't want to fight him. You know, I wouldn't. I think he's probably got a long reach, you know. But the point I'm making here is, right, he doesn't look like the sort of person that would actually manhandle people. Maybe his personality is, he's kind of got that workhouse overseer from Victorian days about him, doesn't he? Sort of like, yeah, he's just a bit iffy. Did I see the child poverty report that came out? Shocking because of the Tory austerity. I've not seen that one, but I did see the report that came out. It was going to be in tonight's show, but this is too much of what's going on just now. One about how Tory austerity, they did a bunch of research, and the report basically says prior to COVID, Tory austerity killed 330,000 people in the UK. That's a whole different show. That'll be probably tomorrow night, to be perfectly honest, but it was just awful. And then I'll go and include that child poverty report as well. Susie, thank you for bringing that up. Right, so let me finish with what wee Ginger Dog concludes his little report in The National about. Today is the latest episode of The Tories. Liz Truss resigned. We do not yet know who will be in the running to replace her. Here comes the good bit. But Boris Johnson is said to be eyeing up a bid for the leadership. Can you imagine? The only certainty left is that the Scottish media will still be banging on about ferries, and Douglas Ross will still hypocritically be trying to claim the moral high ground no matter who the Tories choose as their next leader. Ross will be telling us that he has full confidence in them and they're the ideal person for the job. It is actually true that Boris may be attempting to come back. I think he's in the Caribbean right now. Okay, holidaying like a good MP while this crisis is going on. Probably and deliberately being kept away from the press by his handlers. However, Johnson's side piece, Nadine Dorris, certainly expressed her love for him. Let me bring up her tweet 1 second. We need to switch this off. Hold on, we'll get rid of you there. Check this out. Oh, that's the wrong one. Is this one? Is it this one? This one. Why is that not going to the way I want? Let me just make this the right size. Hold on a second. This should be the right size. Boom. And we want you along like that. Okay. Nadine Dorries, you gotta love her, eh? Nads. She was my favourite of all the wacky Tories during Boris Johnson's time. Right, okay, let's read this, okay? Nadine Dorries. One person was elected by the British public with a manifesto and a mandate until January 25. If Liz Truss is no longer PM, then there can be no coronation of previously failed candidates. MPs must demand the return of Boris Johnson. If not, it has to be a leadership election, or a general election. Oh my God, you know, I mean that wholeheartedly. Oh my God, what do you make of that? Yeah, Boris is coming back from his holiday tomorrow. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what's going to happen if Boris comes back and becomes Prime Minister? He did actually say that he would be back and he would see us all before Christmas again, okay? And during the leadership contest, that fiasco during the summer of lightweights all vying for the top position, the papers, there was a couple of, you know, I think it was a Daily Mail that actually stated that there was a plan already in place to get rid of Truss within the first month of our premiership and, you know, exaggerate a situation where Boris could come back. I don't know what to make of that. I really don't. It's certainly something that is a bit wild to consider. You know something? The Australian news is actually discussing this as well. Watch this.
British Prime Minister Liz Truss has lost the confidence of her own party as it calls for the return of axed Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
That there is a new video that I've not set the sound for. Not having a good day today, am I? I'll set that then now, hold on. And then we shall do this. Hold on. Bring me back. Then we'll play it again.
British Prime Minister Liz Truss has lost the confidence of her own party as it calls for the return of axed Prime Minister Boris Johnson as leader. A poll of over 500 British Conservative Party members found 55% of them believe Ms Truss should resign just 6 weeks into her tenure. The same percentage also admitted they would vote for her leadership contest counterpart Rishi Sunak were they given the opportunity again. Axed former British PM Boris Johnson was the top preference to replace Ms Truss. He garnered 32% of the poll, followed by Mr Sunak at 23%.
That's a bit crazy, isn't it? So right now, Boris Johnson is holding 33% of the poll to be able to come back and be leader of the Conservative Party. I think he needs to get, to be considered, he needs to have the votes of 100 MPs. Wow, oh yeah, looking at what you're saying there just now, Susie, yeah, absolutely. Boris is still under investigation. Now that would be a thing, because one of the reasons I'm pretty sure that he got pushed rather quickly out the door was so he wouldn't be investigated. Now, if he was to come back, we'd probably rapidly, quickly move into some sort of parliamentary recess to move forward, and you would hide, and you would hide again, and there'd be stall tactics, and we know what a great staller Boris Johnson actually is, and he might be able to stall, you know, this whole committee thing, to be perfectly honest. I don't know. Anyway, the whole thing about Boris coming back is totally hilarious. It really, really, really is. Anyway, we're going to move into the papers now, but first of all, let's just play a jingle.
My name's Robert, and I have a question for you. Are you yes yet?
that was my good buddy Robert who phoned me today to say that the Prime Minister was going to resign. He's a no TS chappie, and when I came out of, I was in the training room at work, doing something while I was having my lunch. Came out and he's sitting on the sofa in the canteen. I have never seen a cheesier grin on his face in my life. You know, it was hilarious. Yeah, it is. It's totally like a sitcom, Kim. It really, really is. It's one of the most... I've ran out of popcorn watching this. I really have. I've completely ran out of popcorn. Now, before we go into the papers, and we're going to do our affirmations, and then we'll go into the papers and things. But before that, I've got one more video, and this is our First Minister, actually, and what she said about it all. I think it's important that we sometimes, I mean, we've had a bit of a Mickey take with things that are going on in this serious sort of situation, but let's take stock and see what Nicola said.
This is an almighty mess, and it's people the length and breadth of the UK who are paying the price of this. You know, I think Liz Truss's early resignation as Prime Minister was probably inevitable the moment she walked into Downing Street. But Liz Truss isn't the problem here. She's the symptom of a much more fundamental problem. You know, a broken Tory party, certainly, but also a broken UK political system. What needs to happen now? Well, on a UK level, there must be a general election. It is a democratic necessity. The idea that the Tories can unite behind a Prime Minister now, any Prime Minister, let alone one that is in the public interest, I think is for the birds. But fundamentally, the UK now needs to have a democratic choice over its next Prime Minister. There's even ludicrous suggestions this afternoon that Boris Johnson is going to try to make a comeback. So that's what needs to happen immediately. Of course, for Scotland, that doesn't really solve the fundamental problem, because Scotland's votes don't determine the outcome of UK general elections. So as long as we're part of this Westminster system, we're always going to be vulnerable to getting Prime Ministers we don't vote for, implementing policies that we don't support and do real damage to the country. For Scotland, the only way we get Prime Ministers and governments that the greater number of us vote for is to be independent. And I think the democratic case for independence is growing literally with every hour that passes.
Totally true. The case is going forward every single hour. It's nuts to think that we might actually not get a general election if the Tories all rally behind whoever the next leader is. So a quick look at the chat there. Thank you for the likes and for the shares, Kim. I really appreciate that. It's really good to get the word out there. This little corner of TikTok is growing slowly but surely. I have another good friend that does really interesting, very calm discussions on her live. Kathleen is her name. I was on her live last night, totally by accident. And unfortunately, with the technology that I use to do all the videos and things that you see here, I can't actually bring people into the live through TikTok Live Studio. But I did get a suggestion from somebody, if I want to do a talkie sort of discussion with people, is do this show and then do a talkie session afterwards via my phone. I think that's quite a good idea. So, you know, maybe one night when I've got a day off the next day, I'll see if any like late night people fancy a wee share and talkie. Yell, it's nice to see that somebody would appreciate Nicola Sturgeon as PM. She's not perfect, but compared to everybody else, she is like she's in a different league. You know, I'm not an SNP zealot. I am a card-carrying member of the SNP. I'm quite critical of some of their policies and quite happy to speak to other members, you know, and I'm kind of like the black sheep of my local constituency and my local SNP group, because I do challenge things, and I think it's good to challenge because you don't get people thinking if you don't challenge. But going with what you're saying, you being one of our brethren from south of the border, and you quite like Nicola, it's interesting because there was a lot of TikToks and a lot of tweets today that were saying, "Dear Scotland," words to this effect anyway, "Dear Scotland, can we borrow Nicola for a couple of weeks, please? We'll give her back, I promise." You know, and then there was actually some Scottish ones saying, Dear England, do you want to borrow Nicola for a month or two just to come sort your problem? You can have her till Christmas, and we'll even throw in a few crates of, you know, good Scottish tap water. I thought, wow, that's cheeky, but well funny, you know, all good in a sense of humour. I try to keep this a bit light-hearted. I don't go into like totally deep things that would trigger me. There was you know, one night when that nurse was in all the papers that murdered those children, that kind of upset me and triggered me a wee bit. I'm a big softie, right? And I tend to listen even to arguments from the other camp quite happily. I don't get annoyed or shouty with my debates and things, but I do quite enjoy a good discussion about things. It is, you know what, yeah, it's really pleasant to have somebody actually say that. You've got a lot of respect for an actual honest politician. It's inherently, politicians are trained to lie or to spin the truth a little bit, but I get a good vibe from her. I don't say that. There's probably things that she's actually said in First Minister's questions that I might disagree with sometimes, but I would say inherently she's definitely got a lot more integrity than the rest of them, to be fair. She's calling on a general election, and I agree wholeheartedly that we need a general election, and I'll go along with it completely, as long as we use this important ballot box event to campaign hard that it is a plebiscite for independence. We need to collectively vote for the SNP or any other Indy party, although I would still, to be perfectly honest, I would still want to see as many SNP seats going to Westminster, to be perfectly honest, because come independence it will make for a bigger exodus of MPs out the chamber for the last time, and it would be great to have like a mass of SNP people leaving as a collective when we are independent. But seriously, if the next election comes before an independence referendum, then we need to make sure that every single person, every single possible person is out there voting for an Indy party, and make the election count. Absolutely vital. It's not going to be about day job politics for that. We can do day job politics in Holyrood, and we can do day job politics in Westminster. That's been proven. Okay, but if we get an election before Christmas, which there could be a possibility, because any leader of the Tory party that's going to be the new sort of Prime Minister really has to take a look in the mirror and say, am I narcissistic enough to consider myself to be Prime Minister without testing the public? And they know that they're going to lose. So the donors and the hardliners and the backbenchers are going to say, no, don't do it. They want that year and a half or that year and 3 or 4 months left to try and scramble some support. So when we do have a general election in 2024, it's not as bad as a result for them, you know. But I honestly think that there'll be civil disobedience if we don't get a general election. I don't want to see that, but it's a lot more hot-headed people down south just now compared to up here when it comes to this, and it would be a tragedy if it moved into the realms of civil disobedience. Don't want that, not yet. Okay, let's have a quick look at the chat before we move on to our daily affirmation. Certainly get more intelligent than any other Tory. Yes, totally agree with you, Kim. Only downside is Westminster towards the Blue Act. Yeah. The Tories don't have a mandate in the devolved countries. They don't. They don't at all. Did anybody see the leader of Labour in Wales tear the Tory guy a new one? I'll get that video. I actually had it for tonight, but because I've changed the show, so we'll have to insert that in again. He really, I mean, at least the Labour Party locally in Wales are not in bed with the Tories, while the local Labour up here at the council level, I mean, unfortunately, they are actually in coalition with a lot of the Tories. I don't know if you know this, Yel. Okay, it might be worthwhile, if I don't know how you vote or anything down south, whether you vote for which way your political leanings would actually go for. But up here, when Labour, if you're Labour leaning, right, when Labour sort of turns around and says screw the Tories, they're all a bunch of tossers, everything like that, and all their flowery political language, ask your candidate, if you are voting Labour, how he feels about Scottish Labour being in bed with the Tories at council level, because they actually came together to vote in a council under Labour control, several different councils throughout Scotland, to put aside the party with the most seats, which was the SNP. Go figure that one, eh? Pretty awful. Anything that's not blue, that's fair. That's fair with me. If we didn't have the opportunity for independence, I would be anything that's not blue as well, to be perfectly honest. But right now, I'm very sort of independence colours. At new commenter, Count, is that Count? Yes, it is. Thank you for your comment. Where would we be now if Labour had acted for Scotland in 2014? Well, I believe that we would be in the EU, we'd be back in the EU, we would have our own currency, we would have a world-class NHS, and we would have a strong economy in comparison to what we have now. It doesn't mean that everything would be perfect. Independence is not a magic wand that fixes everything. It doesn't do that. But at least we would have the levers to make our own decisions and our own mistakes and learn from our own mistakes. You can see clearly for the 12 years that the Conservatives have been in power, they've not learned from a single mistake they've made. And let's face it, if Boris Johnson comes back as Prime Minister, that is the epitome of not learning from your mistakes. It'd be crazy, you know. I would vote tactically down south, yeah. I don't think that they would have a great chance. I think you should tactically vote down south to push out a Tory. So if your Lib Dem candidate has more chance of getting in, vote for them. If your Labour candidate has more chance of getting in, vote for them. If there's an alternative that, you know, you would consider would be a good thing, I would vote for them. Yeah, Count, I agree with you there as well. I don't think we'd be worrying about freezing. I think that that white paper that came out on Tuesday that the First Minister and their team put together, there's things that I would like to sit down and speak to the Economist team and say, can you explain that to me so I understand it a bit better? Because I'm not an economist in my mind at all. However, the touchy-feely side of it all, right, which is, let's have a quick look at the idea and the concept behind it, which is we generate power and energy. We make sure that the people of Scotland are paying that at a far lesser cost than what we're paying just now, whether it's at cost or whether it's cost plus a little bit for profit. Take care, Yael. Pleasure to have you tonight. Okay, I do lives Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays and Fridays. But you know, you're welcome to stop by anytime, my friend. So going back to that what I was saying there, the concept of energy, we generate it as a national company in Scotland. Then the people of Scotland get the benefit of that at the least price to be paid possible, and then the rest is sold to the wholesale market of the world. That makes sense, okay? Because that's part of, instead of like an economy where we're losing money, we end up with a little bit more money in our pockets, and we don't have to worry too much about lighting or heating or cooking or charging our electric cars if that's the way that it goes. However, that's still a bit of a distance away for that, but it's something that that we should consider. And so when you're saying, Count, you know, I don't think we'd be worrying about freezing. I totally agree with you, 110%. Okay, so every single night that I do a live, this is where I turn into somebody that sounds like I'm in a cult, to be perfectly honest. I was thinking about this last night going, I must change the name to daily affirmations, because it sounds like I'm like doing something culty, but it's not. It's to point out the the positive decisions that have been made in Scotland by Scots for Scotland without Westminster's interference. There was somebody that I know that watched this show that, you know, I know personally, says some of these things are not free. Says, and we'll talk about that particular case in a second as we go through this just now. Okay, so here we go. Deep breath in. Free prescriptions, free care for the elderly, free primary school meals, introduced same-sex marriage, free bus passes. The Queensferry crossing was built £400 million under budget. Recorded crime in Scotland has reduced by 42%. We scrapped tuition fees. We gained an accreditation from PISA for outstanding education delivery. Built and refurbished 750 schools. Over 1,000 hours of free childcare. Built 70,000 affordable homes, introduced small business bonus, record health spending, 12,000 more employed in NHS Scotland, 230,000 modern apprenticeships. We introduced baby boxes and free sanitary items for ladies. Abolished the bedroom tax, banned fracking, have 1,000 extra police officers on our streets, set up the National Investment Bank, abolished bridge tolls, council tax is frozen, abolished car parking fees in hospitals, introduced free dentistry charges. We scrapped music tuition fees, secured more incoming international investment into Scotland than any other country in these islands. We have created a progressive tax system, and we've introduced plans to promote the health of women and introduced bills to protect them from domestic abuse and misogyny. We also have the Gender Recognition Bill, and we also have a bill going through that will freeze rents in Scotland for the next 6 months. The next one's not a decision that's actually been made in Scotland, although we did vote for it as voters. Our First Minister has now outlasted 5 Prime Ministers, and that is just too funny. Crazy times. Right. Going back to what I was saying, that somebody said something to me earlier on. They were talked about, well, free prescriptions, free childcare, free care for the elderly, free primary school things, and the bus passes. They're not exactly free. We pay for them through the taxes, don't we? And I was like, well, yeah, of course we do. You know, that's how things get paid by the government, is we give them money to, and we vote them in to sensibly spend the taxation on managing our civilization. Is that not what we do with the government? Is that not the right thing to do? We pay our taxes to our government to manage our civilization sensibly. Is are free prescriptions not a sensible thing to do in a civilization to help with medical care? Is free care for our elderly people not a sensible thing to do in our civilization? Are free primary school meals not a sensible thing to do to help alleviate hunger in children brought on by Tory austerity? Are free bus passes not a miracle thing for under 21s to be able to travel all over their own country in a bus for free? When you start looking at it from a practical and sensible point of view, anybody turning around and saying the argument of free prescriptions, they're not free, they just don't get it. I think that people that are not living in Scotland or a couple of the devolved nations where they are free prescriptions, they should be asking themselves why their government is not providing the same for them. And then they just have to look at Westminster and what's happened in the last 24 hours and they'll get their answer. Crazy times. Crazy, crazy. Let's have a look at the chat. I love the chat. The chat is good. We said goodbye to Yale. That was cool. Susie is saying the money we save on nukes and the House of Lords and the embassies. We will need some sort of like embassy structure. We've got a few offices throughout the world already. I think that a lot of countries would welcome us in, because We have a great international reputation as it stands. We've got a First Minister that's got a tremendous international reputation. I mean, she didn't trash the UK economy. She's not trying to screw over the taxpayers by, you know, limiting the social security things, increasing taxes, and not protecting energy prices in the next after 6 months have gone. We're looking to be paying, on average, a third of our household income or more, maybe even more than that, next year on energy. Wow. Wow. That doesn't bear thinking about in my household, to be perfectly honest. Some people will be able to do that. I can't. I'll have to start eating beans on toast. You know, madness. Okay, so the next thing we do, we always have to move on to the Murdo video. We play that every night as well. This is one of the best tools that everything I've said in that list, great tools for expressing to soft no voters. And this video that I'm about to play to you next, after we've asked the pertinent question, which I also do every night, we'll play and I'll give you my comments on that again. Right, so the pertinent question that I ask every single night, okay, it goes a bit like this. Can someone, anyone, please give me any honest case for Scotland to remain in this union? One that truly does not involve anything that mocks or belittles your Scottish neighbours and brothers and sisters. A positive reason that is good for Scotland. And I'm going to wait. You know what? I didn't think we'd get one.
If Scotland leaves the UK, we lose roughly a third of the landmass of Great Britain, probably around half of our territorial waters. We lose the magnificent resource that is Scottish fishing waters. We lose the opportunities from North Sea oil and gas. We lose the potential for renewable energy from Scotland's coasts and in the North Sea and the Atlantic. We lose access to barrier-free trade for Scotch whisky and Scotch salmon, all these fantastic exports. The opportunity to study at some of the world's greatest universities in Scotland, and the joy of having Scots as part of the British nation. Why would you want to throw that away?
If you're new to the show, if you're new to the Saltire Live, late at night that we do these things, that video was, I put it together with the overlays very quickly the day that Murdo did that interview. He did it on GB News. He was asked, well, what would the Union lose if Scotland became independent? And the fool of a took turned round and told the presenter, live on television. I've played that video on his Twitter so many times that he's blocked me. I love that. I love the fact that I'm blocked by Murdo. It's brilliant. So, that video has been played over 17,000 times on Twitter. It's over 700 odds now in retweets. It is available on I've got several Twitter accounts. I've got backup ones because they've been attacked through the use of terms and conditions before. The same way as this account that I'm broadcasting on has also been attacked by the use of terms and conditions. But if you want to share that video and you have a Twitter account, go to @yes_Scots. Okay? You can have a wee look there. You'll find it quite easily. It's pinned to my profile, so it's the first post. Go wild, go mental, go crazy with it, have fun with it, tag as many different Conservative people and Unionists that you know that are in there, as many soft voters as you know, because people don't realise what we're not in control of. And they think that when we go independent, it's not an if now for me, it's when we go independent that the union just kind of will scoop up everything. And we have nothing. But we don't. We've got infrastructure, we've got all those things there that become part of us once again, that we have control over. And that's what's going to make it better for Scotland. Making decisions about those sort of things that you just seen there to benefit the people here. It's a no-brainer for me. Absolute no-brainer. Right, okay. So this is where it will become a bit interesting. Let's have a quick look at the chat. Susie, what are you saying? Definitely we have hubs. Yes, we do. We have hubs in all sorts of countries, and they're like the foundations of our embassies and our consulates. We've got one in the Scandinavian countries. I can't remember which one it is. It's just recently opened. I'm pretty sure that's going to be used as a trading hub and office for joining EFTA come independence. I think that that's the first place to go to, because EFTA have pretty much said that as soon as we've got a legal yes vote, we don't have to have the papers signed, but as soon as we've got a legal yes vote, you know, we can join EFTA, and then we just have to make sure that we have the facilities to trade properly. If you don't know what EFTA is, it's the European Free Trade Association. They have a free trade deal set up with the EU, and would you believe they also have a free trade agreement set up with the rest of the United Kingdom. So we will have seamless trade while we're in EFTA, while we seek, if we so desire, to rejoin the EU. It's just one of those things, you know. So yeah, I think we need to have a look at the papers now, because I tried to limit this to an hour and I've got about 5 minutes left. I don't mind running over, but after 12 o'clock this old man here gets a bit tired and my head starts to go a bit gammy, and I'm like, what am I talking about? I can feel it now already. Okay, so let's play the papers jingle and get ourselves set up. Okay, I will switch back and forward to this camera so I can speak to you, but let's get the papers up just now, and I need to go and do the same thing over on... Where's my paper screen? There it is there. On the other screen. You don't get to see the technical stuff that I do here, but basically it's all about... I record this each live as well. Excuse me. I record each live as well, so I can upload them to YouTube, even though I've not had time to render them properly to upload just yet. So I've got the screen that you guys see on TikTok, and then I've got like a letterbox screen that records it all to go up to YouTube and stuff. But we're here for the papers, aren't we? So the first one, I will look at them on my pad of eyes as well. Boris versus Rishi. Fight for the soul of the Tories. Wow. Let's read what it says in a small print. Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak led the race to succeed. Oh, it's now. Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak led the race to succeed Liz Truss last night after she became the shortest serving Prime Minister in history. After a disastrous 44 days, blah, 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 blah. There we go. Candidates will need the backing of at least 100 Tory MPs by 2 p.m. on Monday to take part in the contest. 5 times the threshold set for the last contest. This is to limit the candidates, to speed up the process. That's what the 1922 committee probably would have discussed. Otherwise, would be months doing the same sort of thing again. It wouldn't be good. But let's look at the next one. The Times. Dun dun dun. This is tomorrow's Times. Johnson weighs return to powers as Truss quits Number 10. Okay. Liz Truss resigns. Yes, we know that. Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson. I can't read that because it's so tiny. Nope, can't read it. I need to get a better iPad. But yeah, you're going to see a variation of a theme here as we go through all this, right? That the theme is, the papers are all saying, ah, Boris is coming back. We love Boris. Independent. Voters demand general election to pick new PM. I totally agree with that. 250,000 back our campaign to let public choose at the ballot box. Truss quits to make way for the third Prime Minister in 8 weeks. Wow, has it really been like that? 8 weeks? That's friggin' crazy. I honestly do feel that there's going to be trouble if we don't get an opportunity for a democratic process about this. I think that some people will regret not doing that. Guardian, the bitter end. Truss quits after 45 days of turmoil. Prime Minister bows to the inevitable. Successor, the new PM by next week, and Boris Johnson may be among the candidates. I think they'd be loonies to include Boris. I really, 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 really do. I think that that would actually be the wrong thing to do. As much as I'd love it, because it'll just frustrate so many unionists that don't like him up here. You know, it'll just be like, wow, what are they going to do? I mean, there was a reason that he left the office of Prime Minister in disgrace. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Because I wanted him out before the disgraceful things, you know? But wow, what can I say? Let's go back to the papers. Labour leader condemns revolving door of chaos and demands a general election. So does our First Minister, and I agree with both of them. Absolutely both of them. Right, what else have we got? Next paper. Oh wow, yes. Daily Express. He couldn't, could he? Will Boris bounce back to number 10? What do you guys all feel about Boris coming back? Do you think that that is actually going to be a possibility? Do you think that he will end up back in the power chair in the cabinet office? Do you think he's going to be, what did he call himself? The big dog. Operation Save Big Dog. That's what he was doing before. Do you really think that he's going to get back in? Part of me thinks he will. If Boris gets back in, I think England will implode. As long as it snaps off at the border and floats away just a little bit, you know. But wow, yeah. Do you know what? I think that it'll implode as well. I really do. I think that there potentially will be problems with it all, and that's what I'm saying. I think if he comes back in, if we don't get a ballot box event, that there might be a little bit of civil unrest. You know, I don't want that. Don't want to see anybody get hurt at all. I'm not into that whatsoever. Anyway, what's the next paper? Let's go and have a wee looky-loo. Okay. This is the Daily Telegraph, the smelly craft. Right. Boris Johnson tells Tories, I could save the party from an election wipeout. Yes. My name's Boris Johnson, and I'm your leader. I'm the big dog. Yes. Absolutely. I've got a side piece called Nadine Dorris, and she's just like a bit scary. I find her scary sometimes, yes. Anyway, that's not a very good Boris impression. What does this one say? Let's have a look, see if I can read the small print. Let me see. Nope. It is too small. Former PM sees chance of it. I mean, the brass neck of him, actually. Let me come off this again. Honestly, I need to rant for a second at the screen. Where is it? There's the clicky. Right, cool. The brass neck of him. Okay, I mean, really, does he think that that would be a good idea for his party? Does he think that that is the right way to go for it all? I mean, wow. It doesn't bear thinking about, in my honest opinion. It really doesn't bear thinking about in the slightest. But it's Boris Johnson. He's a narcissist, a first-rate narcissist. I would say he's at the top of his game when it comes to narcissism. I can think of probably another 10 different ways to describe him as a narcissist, but that just feeds into his narcissism though, doesn't it? He loves that. He loves being a narcissist. I don't care. I just don't get this whole thing. I think that I'll probably have a long, long rant if he does get in live on TikTok. If I think it'll be worthwhile doing as well, to be perfectly honest. Okay, that's the screen that I record the papers on, by the way, that you're just seeing there. Right, back to what TikTok sees. There you go. Right, next one. The Sun. Bojo will be back. What does it say about Rishi in the corner there? Do you know, see that sort of psychological thing there? With a big headline for Boris and a tiny one for Rishi. And Boris is situated above Rishi and things. That's all done deliberately, by the way. Boris Johnson was last night eyeing the mother of all political comebacks after Liz Truss became Britain's shortest blah blah blah. She quit after 44 days, yes, we know that. In a shock move, Boris started to bid to get his old job back. But Tory chief said candidates would need the backing of at least 100 MPs to have any chance of going to a ballot of the party members. It triggered claims of a stop Bojo stitch up. Well, maybe there are sensible people out there after all. Fingers crossed. Here we go. Gone in 44 days. Do you know what? I'm going to say it again. I think that I think part of me really wants to feel sorry for Elizabeth Truss. Please don't hold that against me. It's just the humanity in me. I do, but she kind of brought it on herself. She thought she was like a personality in all this. She thought personality politics sort of thing going on. She didn't have the popular vote of the public. She didn't have the same thing that Johnson had. You know, she just didn't. And she had less than 50% of the popular vote of her own party and party members. You know? And she came in swinging the wrong way and screwed everything up because she's rubbish. You know? But part of me does feel sorry for her. That's just the human being in me, to be perfectly honest. Right, we need to click that one. Brilliant. And do that one there. Let's see what's next. Next one is rejoice. Let us rejoice. Yeah, if you didn't know, all right, the Daily Star was running a live stream to see which would last the longest. A lettuce that had been sprayed with water, or Liz Truss. The lettuce won. Can you believe that? The lettuce won. That's what it's about. Plucky star veg outlasts plucky veg outlasts lettuce Liz as she wilts in political heat, and you won't believe which cabbage might be coming back to save us. Oh wow, that's funny. That is so funny. Right, okay. Metro, the worst PM we've ever had. Yes, UK's shortest serving premier in history. Now Boris is planning to make a comeback. You know, well, let him. I keep saying that. We'll see what happens. Financial Times. Truss quits after 44 days as PM. Yep, we know that. And then the next one is the Mirror. And this is probably the most sensible headline, to be perfectly honest. General election now. That's it. The general election has to be now. We have to have a general election, in my opinion. Not for just the sake of, not for just the sake of preventing any form of civil unrest, but for the democratic process, and to be perfectly fair, for the Conservative Party as well, because they're all going to be sitting on the benches apart from the egotistical narcissists that are within the Tory party, okay? But there's a bunch of them that will feel a bit sick sitting there thinking, we gave them Truss and now we've given them Boris back, or we've given them Sunak back, and they've not chosen those leaders. What's the public going to be thinking? Well, the public will bide their time, and the public will turn around and end up voting them out anyway. So it's inevitable that they're gone, but whether we have to suffer until next year or before the end of this year is entirely up to them. Do they want to put these islands through that? I don't think they should. I really, really don't. And if we do have a general election, all us Indy folk need to treat it as a plebiscite, and we need to write to our MSPs, all our representatives, and say, here, make this a plebiscite, make this happen, because that's the plan if we don't get the ruling with the High Court. We can't sit back and do this because there won't be another ballot box event for another 5 years if we have an election. And Keir Starmer, certainly if he gets into power, is going to be just as hardline as the Conservatives about allowing Scotland a democratic process. You know, that's just how it is. Yes, Westminster has never been democratic, Susie. I totally 100% agree with you, without a doubt. Okay, where are we now? Let's check my little box of notes. Where are you, notes? There you are. So that was the papers. I do have one more video. I'm not too sure. Yeah, shall we play it? I think we will. Where is it? Video 5. No, is it video? Yeah, that's the one there. It's a bit of a comedy one. Alright, it's one just to finish up with before we go to the banjos. Okay, hopefully this is it.
I admire your luck, Mr. Market. Pork Market.
We want you to go undercover as a member of the Conservative Party and destroy it completely. Top secret, of course. Absolutely no one must know.
Pay attention. This clever device is a budget. It's powered by the LBR, whereas you'll be using this mini-budget, capable of taking out an entire government in just a few short weeks. Oh, and you'll have to get rid of your Chancellor, naturally.
That is a disgrace.
I love that. I really, really, really love that. I think it's brilliant. Just a fun thing to finish on. But isn't it funny how all the James Bond characters in that, with the Liz Truss head on them, are all Sean Connery, and the pussycat at the end is Boris. Very good. Right, cool. So where are we? Let's check here. This is the one we're going to now.
The Saltire is also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and TikTok. You will find the links to follow us on all of them at www.thesaltire.scot/media.
Right, the banjos are playing there. I'm just checking that they are. Yes, I can see them jumping up and down. That's cool. Banjos are just a signal from my old days of streaming on YouTube that says that we're coming to the end of the show. So now's my opportunity to thank everybody that's been commenting. Susie, love your comments all the time. Really good count. Thank you for joining us tonight. You're always welcome to come and join us. I'm sorry it's so late at night. It's the only way I can get tomorrow's papers, unless I was to do a really early morning show. And don't want to do that. I'm more of a night owl. Yale, I know that you're not here, but it was a pleasure having you. And 2 new followers tonight. That's brilliant. And that's just really, really cool. I think Kim was here earlier on. I don't know if you're still here, Kim, but thank you for joining us as well tonight. And everybody else that has commented, sent likes and shared. Sharing the live feed, sharing and putting likes on this is not an ego thing. It allows other people to get to know the Saltire as a channel. My name is Mo, by the way. That's what my friends call me. You're all welcome to call me Mo here. But the whole idea of likes and shares is it kind of bumps it up within the algorithm of TikTok that allows more people to have it appear on their For You page. So please, by all means, start, middle and end of the show, share it with a couple of friends and like the living daylights out of it all the time. It helps promote that within the algorithm of TikTok. But that's us for tonight. So I will play my cheesy closing sort of like music as per usual. And I will be back tomorrow night and we will be having a look at the child poverty thing and also 330,000 deaths caused by Tory austerity. That's, of course, unless something crazy happens like it happened today. Like if Boris goes on the telly and says, yes, I've got 100 people backing me already. Oh my God, I will be reporting the living daylights out of that. But in the meantime, thank you for listening. Goodbye and good luck.
O Flora, Scotland, when will we see your like again? That fought and died for your wee bit hill and glen and stood against him. Proud Edward's army and sent him homeward to think again. The hills are bare now and autumn leaves lie thick and still. O'er land that is lost now, which those so dearly held that stood against him. Proud Edward's army and sent him home.